Hello everyone, welcome to the Grow Your Future podcast. I am your host, Zar Azmi, and introducing the most positive accountant in the world.
Positive.
Sam Eljaban, how are you?
Is that because I get so many positive?
You know, it's not really that hard to be the most positive accountant in the world because most of you blokes are so negative.
We are negative motherfuckers. So. It's because we work so hard, mate. You know how many people email me this week? Go, can I have my refund yesterday? I'm like, no, you can't.
Yeah, you know why I think what you guys just turn into these negative people is because you're telling people about how much tax they have to pay, and people hate paying tax.
They hate
right?
it. They hate it, and especially this time of the year, it's fucking mayhem. It's mayhem. So
you're getting hammered.
You can understand if your accountant doesn't come back to you. I do. I'll do my best to come back to you nearly same day or tomorrow. But if they don't come back to you, it's because they're so overwhelmed with shit to do, and it makes it hurt. It's painful. It's painful, but we do our best, mate.
But you're very good at sort of projecting positivity onto our clients, and
that's on the phone after. It's
you have a bitch fest afterwards, right?
You hear them,
which is a great segue into what we're going to talk about today. What is it?
The top 10 complaints of bitches before they become property investors. Something along those lines.
Yeah, so top 10 bitch complaints. So basically, if you are going to complain about investing in property, listen to this podcast first, and then maybe you'll get some solutions. And a lot of people complain, right, about the state of the market. It's unaffordable. There's so many, and we're going to go through our top 10 because we actually get the complaints, the feedback from
in our meetings.
From existing clients, from potential clients, from the average Joe Blow at the Sunday barbecue. Like we're getting it all the time. Like we were just talking about it before. We had someone on Instagram, telling us to invest in USD, as in US dollars instead of real estate. And he's complaining that the market's going to crash, and there's a lot of doomsdayers out there and a lot of negativity. And I think let's just squash some of these complaints. Let's just we're not shying away from reality. They're sort of valid complaints, but
we'll address them.
Let's get educated on it.
It's easy to be negative. How easy it is to complain when something happens.
I think the majority of the population are negative.
It's sort of like a go-to natural point of view.
Well, think about it. Well, think about it, Sam. Like everyone follows news on the social media and all of that sort of thing. And what is media? Mostly negative.
Negative. And you know what's funny? They at the end to give you a shot of happiness, they show a little puppy dog or something. So just to leave you on a good
just
note.
So you don't kill yourself.
That's how it is. The news is always like bullshit until the end. They show a little puppy dog, a nice news story at the end, but the majority of it's shit.
But they'll fuck you again tomorrow, right? Yeah. And then the next day.
So you're on an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah. So let's squash some of those complaints and come up with some solutions to some of these some of these bitches.
It applies to everyone. So I'm sure everyone listening is going to go, oh, no, I thought about that and was complaining about that. So hopefully it helps you out.
Well, number one is, I guess it's the main.
It's the main one. Why would you? Probably because it's the first thing before you even do anything, would you say?
So fear.
Fear, yeah.
So fear is the fear of investing, a fear of parting with your money. And I put this down to not being educated. Because if you're educated and you understand what the market is about, you understand what bricks and mortar is, you understand about, I guess, basic economics, leverage, all of those sort of things, it becomes a no-brainer and you no longer get scared.
Yeah. And I think following on from that, even if you're educated, I found with some people, because we deal with a lot of different types of people, they could be quite educated in the space. We had a client the other day, he knew everything about what we're talking about, but he still hadn't pulled the trigger. And even though I think he had the education, it's still maybe having support. He had no support as well as the education. So he might have known that's the thing to do, but he didn't know how to do it, like he was saying. So fear is a big one. I've gone through it. You would have started initially back in the day when you...
Nah, I didn't give a fuck.
You didn't give a fuck?
No, I was
build up
like,
to it?
You know what? I'm going to put the money in. I'm going to roll the dice. I've always been like that, right? Roll the dice, and then if you get hurt, you fall over, you just get back up, and you just do it again. You know what I mean? Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You know, lose 100 grand, make it back. You know what I mean?
But you are an outlier. Your mentality, not everyone has that. So the vast majority that come through, they'd have a little bit of fear.
And,
But we have to squash
and
it.
that's why it's
We have to
our
squash
job, and it's not just our job to tell them stop being a bitch and pull the trigger. It's our job to educate them, right?
True.
A couple of nights ago, I had, we signed on a couple of new clients. They're very green. They're in their 40s, so they've never invested before, only in their PPR. We're talking about, SMSF. We're talking about personal name, buying in each of those entities. And it was so overwhelming for them to the point where they struggled to get, I guess, sign an agreement with us.
They probably couldn't follow what we've been saying.
Yeah, exactly. So what I did is I sat with them for 2.5 hours and I just went through everything. And by the end of that 2.5 hours, they were so confident. That fear was erased. And it just took sitting with the right person that they could trust and build a relationship with and go, you know what, I now understand it.
Yeah. Because really the antidote of fear is knowledge. So once you can understand what you're doing and you have comfort and you're comfortable in doing it, then there's no fear anymore. You've crossed that barrier.
A lot of these people, they don't have time to educate themselves because they're so busy running their lives. They've got families, they've got full-time jobs, and especially being in their 40s, they've got responsibilities, right? So they need people like us to go and tell them, hey, having that lazy equity in the home, not really doing much for you, can be leveraged into higher performing assets.
Yep.
And then once I explain that to them, it's like they want to do more than they probably should now. So they've gone from one extreme to the other purely because of education.
That's right. And they're reaching out. So I think they understand. So they know they have to do something, but they might have the fear because they don't understand it on how to do it. So they have that idea, they want to do something. This bloke's doing it. I want to ask him, how do I do it? So there's a fear there, but with the education and your support, then they can do it.
So the biggest fear I see, Sam, is they're scared to part with their cash.
Yeah.
They've worked so hard to save, 100, 200 grand, and they don't know what to do with it, but they know that it's going down in value because they read on the news every day that the dollar is diminishing in value. So, I think America hit inflation of 9% or something the other day.
And that's the reported, so it's double, man.
Yeah, so let's say it's 10%, right? Your 100 grand is really 90 grand. And so it's in our face all the time, a lot more than it used to be. So I think people know that their savings is diminishing in value, but they're still scared to part with it, to convert it into something that's going to make money. And I think that every single person who earns money and saves money on this planet should learn how to part with that money, but in more of an educated way, so you can be confident that you know it's going to grow.
I find that you get better over time. So the first one I did, it took a while, and then it just flows on from there. So parting with the money, it is a barrier for a lot of people, but it's just a mindset thing. You have to get used to it. You have to understand what you're doing, and then once you actually do it and you see the benefit that comes from it, you
don't want to stop.
You kick yourself waiting to do more
and
earlier and all that. So I'm in a position now. I'm waiting on a few things to happen, and I'm so eager for them to hurry up so I can keep going. So it's a weird one. As soon as you achieve it and you can, it's like anything you do for the first time. It's a bit nervous, but once you can break through and part with the money, it's amazing.
It is amazing. Like this. It's this barrier you've got to break through, and once you've broken through it, you most of the time you're just hell for leather, right? You just want to keep doing it. You
see opportunity.
Exactly.
Positivity.
Because you're more educated. So a lot of I guess new investors, when they come and see us for the first time, our jobs is to really push them through that barrier. And a lot of people look at that and go, it's a bit aggressive, you're a bit firm with them. But it's like, well, you have to be. Because once they're through that barrier, you know what's on the other side for them. And how many times have we got new investors who have just broken through that barrier, call us up before even settling on their first property, saying, what's next?
Yeah.
Where's number 2, number 3 for me? And it's like, hang on, now we're sort of telling them to stop and keep saving the money. Isn't it funny, right?
It's a massive transition. Massive transition.
But that's our job, Sam. That's our job to make them change, that mindset shift.
100%. It's sort of like and it's funny because they know they have to change. That's why they reach out. But they still have the fear, and it's sort of like a PT in a way. You're trying to extract what you can from them and
trying to push them.
Because that's what they came to you for.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. If they keep doing what they're doing, they're going to be in the same position in 10 years' time.
Exactly.
So they're reaching out to go, I don't want to do this anymore. What's the alternative? Can you show me how to do it? So they're wanting your help, but it's still there's friction in changing. You know
I like
what I mean?
the analogy of being the PT. It's like, you know, you're telling him to get off the fucking couch and get to the gym, right? It's like us saying, log into your bank account and transfer it to bricks and mortar, right?
Put it on the treadmill.
Exactly. Get it working for you.
Get it fit.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to get fat and lazy on the couch. Number 2.
Okay, number 2 is actually, so once you've broken the fear barrier, which is a lot of which is one of the it's the biggest barrier to starting anything, it's knowing what to do next, which is another thing why people come to us for, and another big roadblock for people that maybe don't use us, what to do, where to put the money, how many strategies are out there.
And there's no right or wrong.
There's no right or wrong. Every strategy has a benefit, and they do so and market it because there is a benefit in some way or form with that strategy. So there's so many strategies under the sun. I assume if you take on each of them, they'll give you some form of benefit. It's working out what strategy you want for yourself, and maybe the one with the most benefits that's going to help your situation.
So the issue we find at the moment, Sam, after having a 2-year sort of quite big boom, right? It's probably one of the biggest booms we've seen. A lot of stock has been taken, as in good stock, and it's just what happens. There's a shortage of assets in general, but there's a shortage of really good assets. So what happens is we don't actually have a lot of options to invest in much stuff. So sometimes there's long wait lists, right? So a lot of people want to avoid that, and they want to come to us with alternatives, and we got to knock them back and say, not because we're not endorsing it, it's just the fact that it's probably not going to be the best thing for them. So one of the biggest complaints is really like not having enough good stock, because when there's no good stock around, people are unsure because they're in such a hurry because they've broken through this fear. They want to invest. They're so eager, but then there's nothing to buy, right? And that's where we get a lot of complaints on there's not enough options, there's not enough good stock, I'm going to go find it myself. And then they bring us shit which isn't really going to perform. They might have brought something that's grown in the last 2 years, but the last 20 years has done nothing, right? And they're not thinking for the next 20 years. They're just thinking the last 2 years. So it's very important, especially now where we're going through a little bit of a correction, that you're very selective with the stock that you choose, because it's when the market comes off is where you see those big declines in those less desirable, say, locations.
I think the complaints come because you run your business in such a way you won't put a client in a property that won't perform. That's where the limited stock comes into play, right? But in the general market, there's still things you can buy.
Oh, there's always stuff you can buy.
But they're not going to stack up in the long term. So that's where the complaint comes from. I get it, but you wouldn't want to put your client in something that's going to make them go backwards anyway.
Well, we would rather not sign up a client and not do a deal than put them into a property just for the sake of it. And how many clients have we had to knock back because of that? Because they're in a hurry, they've got to do something today, they've put us under pressure, and we've just said, no, we don't want to do it. Like, we don't have to hit targets or anything like that. We're a very small boutique firm. If we don't do a deal for a whole year, it doesn't really matter, right? So for us, we're happy to say no to clients because every single deal we put our clients into, we want to hit a home run for them.
Yeah, and I would say that people listening, if they get, say, declined or there's nothing for them here, still be careful out there, because there are people that will take your money and put you into something just to meet targets, which we've discussed previously. And I would say over the last couple of years, a lot of you would agree, people have become experts purely because of the market, not themselves.
Everyone's a rock star.
Right, so be careful who you listen to. People, listen to people with track record, they know what they're doing. And a good thing I found is just in general with whatever you're buying, if it's property, car, whatever, the person you're dealing with who's helping you get into the product, the house, whatever it is, ask them if they're actually buying what they're selling. It's a very good thing to see. If the person that's trying to get you into something, whether it's the car, the house, whatever it is, are they buying? Do they have the the faith, the sort of knowledge, the belief in that going to perform or not. So I think it's a good test to see if the person you're dealing with is actually acquiring the things you're acquiring.
I'll give you a good example, Sam. I went to, when I first started out in this industry, I actually pretended to go for a job somewhere that was another property investment firm, and I was able to sit, I think we've talked about it on a podcast before, and I was able to sit into a consult, as just like a fly on the wall. And afterwards, I asked the sales consultant, I was like, oh, do you have any properties himself? And he said no. And he is recommending property investment. This guy was like 25
Where's
years old.
his authority? How can he comment?
Yeah, and he goes, look, I'm waiting for probably another couple of years until I get my first investment. And that's where I was like, you know what? I'm going to invest in every single project that I recommend to my clients, right? And then that way they're going to have absolute confidence that they're investing in the right products. And I still do that to this day. And that's because I really, really believe in it. And we've got this guarantee at Luxland is if they're not happy with their purchase, I'll actually buy it off them at contract price because I just know that it's such a good deal that I'm more than willing to do that. Now, we've never had to execute that guarantee because everybody's been extremely happy with their purchases. But look, it says a lot, right? It says a lot. And I even say to clients, if you don't buy it, I'll probably buy it, right? And that's how good the stock is. And there's a limited supply of that stuff.
That's just the nature of the market. It'll change, but right now, it's a complaint. It's hard to deal with. You can't really get around it, really.
Just staying on number 2, Sam. If people decide to go and do it on their own, I think what they should do is wind back to one of our podcasts about the Luxland fundamentals. And if you can tick the 6 fundamentals, then I think you'll do okay, right? So you don't necessarily have to go through a firm like us or even anybody else. There's a lot of other good firms out there. You can do it on your own, but as long as you hit those 6 fundamentals. So rewind, get onto that. That's about 45 minutes of really good, solid fundamentals. And if you can follow them, you should
hit a
home run.
Home run. Next one. What's the next one?
Cost of investing.
Big complaint, sort of out of our hands. It's macro level.
It's not my fault.
Yeah, that's right. But I know what you used to say. If it costs too much, go back and make more money. Didn't you used to tell me that all the time? So
tough love.
So that's I guess the solution. If it costs too much, just go back and make more money. If you can't do that, there are other ways around it. But,
well, the needle has moved, Sam. So back in the day, a standard sort of property investment, you could get house and land, townhouse, a really good apartment for 500 grand. So $500,000, and this is going back probably.
That's the 90s, right?
Well,
90s?
Not quite. Like you go 10 years ago, like you'd get a good investment for 500 grand, even probably 6 or 7 years ago. But we've had 2 booms since then, really, when you think about it. And the needle has now moved to about the sweet spot of 750 grand. So a lot of people, because wages haven't gone up, they haven't saved enough money, their complaint is it's just too expensive. But that's a good thing because you know that it's going to be even more expensive later on. So if you can get in now, so we're finding that the affordability is really in apartments at the moment. So, if that's the only asset that you can buy, then don't sit there and whinge that's the only asset you can buy. Just fucking buy it, right?
While you can afford it.
Get in and then, you can leverage off that later. Like, yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's nobody's fault. It's the market.
We hear clients when they come in, even just in general chit chat with people, it's always the market's going up and up and up. It's not stopping. So
it might correct and dip here and there,
but waiting doesn't help you. So really, if the complaint is it's too expensive, that's not going to change. And property's always been expensive. If you talk to our parents, right, they'll be like, oh no, fuck, the property was expensive back. Even though it was 70, 80 grand, 150 grand. Compared to their salaries back then, it was still expensive. It's cheap now and they made good money now, but at the time, it was still expensive. Even when you bought some of your properties, you bought at the peak of the market. They've since, gone up hundreds of thousands, but at the time,
everybody told me not to do it, right?
Not to do it. So property's never cheap, really. It's always
expensive.
So it's just a matter of biting the bullet, buying something you can afford that's going to stack up, and then just waiting.
If you can understand construction and replacement costs, you'll probably feel more comfortable with just jumping in because people look at the market and they think, okay, the market's going up, but it's not so much just the market. It's also the cost to replace these products. Like the cost of construction usually rises by about 8-9% a year. But at the moment, it's rising by like 25, 30, 50% sometimes. So if you can understand the cost to replace shelter, right, is at an all-time high, and it will only keep getting higher, you'll understand that, okay, the market's just going to keep going, right? Regardless of these interest rates and all of that sort of thing, there's still a shortage of really good, let's say, rental accommodation for the market to rent. Like most vacancy rates in the country are below 1%. It is so hard to get a rental at the moment. And this is where these interest rate rises, I mean, for property investors, it's not going to mean much because rents are going up. There's a shortage of this type of stock up there.
Touching on replacement costs, I've seen over time, tradies in Australia are becoming sort of the new wave of millionaires. If they get a good business up and running, they're making good money.
They're making more money than doctors and lawyers.
They got the waterfront properties. They got utes up the front, business names. They're doing well. And really, what are they doing? They're building houses. So the profits they're making are being factored into those houses. So if you see tradies excelling and succeeding and making money building these nice houses for themselves, that's coming from somewhere. It's being put into houses that they're building that we have to buy. So their profits they're making are really factored into the houses that we're trying to buy. And they're only going to keep, they're in business, they're not going to drop their prices and things over time.
No.
We're a capitalist economy, always on growth. So
And
they're going to keep pushing for money, it's going to keep going up.
And added to that, Sam, is the fact that we have these supply chain issues of materials, shortage of materials. There's a shortage of labour in this country as well because immigration's been shut off for so long. And that's just going to increase pricing, not just for the materials, but the labour as well. Like it costs us so much to get a brickie on site now. It's literally more than double than it was 18 months ago. It's not just petrol going up. It's like a lot of other things as well. So if you can understand that and understand how much it actually costs, you will eliminate that sort of need to complain because you're like, okay, I get it. I've now just got to get in.
Got to act, done. Next one.
Oh man, this is a massive complaint that I have been dealing with a lot of my existing clients till this day today.
So you're going through the fear, you go through, you found the property, so you've selected the property, then what happens? You get
delays. Now, this can be for a number of reasons. We, for example, land registrations are taking so long to get through council.
On average, how much longer is it taking than normal?
I don't even want to say because it's embarrassing, right? But the thing is, it's out of our control.
Yep.
Like, councils aren't private organisations like us where they're driven by profits, right? Councils are lazy fucks, right? So they just don't operate any faster, doesn't matter how busy they get, right? So what happens, they're overloaded with work at the moment because of this boom. They're not working any faster. They're probably working slower, right?
Yeah.
You go down to a council office on a Friday, say lunchtime, no one's there.
They're taking stress leave.
Everyone's on a boozy lunch, right? And they're not back till Tuesday night, right? Or Wednesday morning. Look, the thing is, we have to understand that everything's clogged up, everything's backlogged, and there's nothing we can do about it. But let's say, for example, the people that are waiting for land to register, if they've locked in square metre rates from, say, 18 months ago, they've made money on the land. Like we've got some clients who bought land, say, almost 18 months ago. It's only getting registered now, but they've made a couple of $100,000 in equity on the land. But because they're not seeing it on paper, they don't see a property being built or settled. They don't understand that. So they need to understand that they've had time in the market without any holding costs, and they're making money. They're building equity. They're probably making more money than the deposit that they put into the whole project.
I think they have to be reminded sometimes, because I'm in the same situation. You are too. You're copping delays, but because of your knowledge and our knowledge in the space, you understand that it's not always a bad thing. It might stuff up some plans, but it's not a bad thing. Like you said, you're getting the holding of the asset without too much cost. You're benefiting from the market. I think another thing to consider with delays is it's not only sort of the delays from the council side of things, there's a lot more demand. So even though there's like talk of a slowdown with interest rates and things, the government's still got a lot of stimulus out there for first-time buyers and investment type stuff. You got that labour equity scheme, so they're still, I think, pushing forward with that. So there's still a lot of drivers from the government. Remember the home builder, that 150 grand grant and all that all of that stuff was all stimulated and pushed through to create demand for properties, which has inflamed everything.
These are very good points, Sam. And we must remember that the property investment space is still red hot. Why? Because people need to put their money somewhere. People think, oh, interest rates are going up, I'm going to put my money in the bank. Like, you're still going to get fuck all in return.
Still
right?
negative return.
So people still need to find a safe place for their money. Like, they're no longer putting it in crypto, right? They're no longer putting it in the stock market. It has to move to a basic necessity like shelter, right? And what's happened now is there's already a shortage of these assets on the market. The rental accommodation crisis right now is very serious. I don't think we've had vacancy rates this low in Australian history. So when you think about it, your end consumer is the renter if you're a property investor. So if there's a high demand for that type of product and there's a shortage of that product, how is that product going to go down in value? It costs so much to replace, right? So, like, I don't know, what's the complaint actually?
Delays,
right?
But we're trying to say it's not really the bad thing.
It's not that bad. We're seeing so much interest and you're going to make money, right? And I think the reason why I guess we're so understanding as like people like you and me, Sam, of delays is because we're also in business, right? Like it always tends to be the employees that bitch, right? Because they're this entitled bunch of people that just go, oh, I want my stuff now because I'm entitled to it. But if you understand business and understand that things don't always go according to plan, you'll know that delays happen in business because property investment is a business. Right? So before you bitch and complain, understand that other people are in business. Like I actually don't mind if you complain to me because I'm a complainer as well. But you have to understand why the delays are happening. If you can't get materials on site because they're just not available, what are you going to do? Bash the builder for not getting the materials on site? They're not there, right? Like, we have to understand that other people are in business and they want things completed just as much as we do so they can get paid.
It's a slippery slope to negativity. When you try and control something, you can't control it. Don't even try.
You know what's funny, Sam? We've titled this podcast Top 10 Bitch Complaints. I'm actually complaining about everybody else here. You know what I mean? It's my complaint about all of the complainers. But delays are going to happen, right? Delays are going to happen. Just understand that, you know, things will get complete if you've gone with a reputable company. It will happen. You're making money with that time in the market. It's not the end of the world. Everybody's going through it.
Look at the positives instead of the negatives of it, and then you'll be fine. Number 5.
Timing.
Okay. So I guess the complaint regarding timing with clients is...
Well, it ties in to delays,
ties in with delays, and it's really dictated to by someone's personal situation. Everyone has something going on in their life.
So someone's getting pregnant, having to go on mat leave. Someone wants to leave their job to go and start a business. Someone wants to actually quit their job and move overseas or something like that, but they really, really want to get a loan. Unfortunately, it's sort of not our problem.
Not our problem.
No. It's sort of if you've decided to make a change in your life, and you're experiencing a delay with settlement on a property that you're buying, unfortunately, you've just picked the wrong time to make that personal change in your life. So, you know, it's one of those things where we don't really have a solution for this. I mean, get your property investing all out of the way before you make any big decisions on changing your, I guess, financial situation, like starting a business from going from a job. Or, you know, I guess you can't help falling pregnant, but you're going to know, you know, if you're going to give birth in 9 months.
Stop having romantic dinners. that could help, man. But I think one thing we can say about timing is you can combat it. So if you don't plan, you can be screwed. But if you plan, you can combat timing. Because a lot of clients come to us, and because there's different ways you can invest in property, off the plan, something already built, all that kind of stuff. There's
different strategies,
heaps of different strategies. No matter what is on your cards or what you think it's going to happen next 6 months, 12 months, there's always a way to do it. And I'm actually quite impressed how he always can come up with some sort of solution or multiple solutions for a client-specific situation. We've dealt with people trying to have families, starting businesses, leaving jobs,
going to jail.
Going to jail. Nearly any situation you're potentially going to face that you can foresee, obviously.
Well, you got to know.
You can combat.
You got to put it on the table, and you have to understand the risks, right? So you got to understand that there's going to be delays, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be tough times getting your finance approved. Like, just understand that. Now, there are certain situations where it's super unfortunate, right? Like, it's just so unlucky that has occurred, and it's really changed that person's personal situation. And we just deal with it, right? Like, if you lose your deposit, we've never lost a deposit for a client, but if you lose your deposit, so what, right? Like, life goes on. So don't beat yourself up over it. I think a big one now is servicing calculators are changing because interest rates are going up. I guess, tough love, but go and make more money so you can actually borrow more money. People are seeing, okay, I can borrow $700,000 now, or I can borrow $500,000 in 12 months. What do I do? And everyone's like, freaking out, trying to scramble for good property. But the problem is, if you try and buy something now, there's nothing really that good on the market. So it's sort of this catch-22. Like, okay, I can borrow more money now, but there's not really any assets I can buy now. Or I can wait 12 months and my servicing will drop from $700,000 to $500,000, for example, right? If I wait, then obviously, the market's still continue to go up. What am I going to buy for 500 grand? Well, the simple solution is to make more money. Increase your income, create a side hustle, get another business, marry a rich guy, whatever it is, right? So it's like there are things that you can do, but just roll with the punches.
Regardless of the situation, there's something you can do. I think that's the end story. Number 6, that's a very good one. Being emotional and not logical. So the complaint, I guess, is people wanting to customize.
This is a bullshit complaint when it comes to property investment, right? Like, at the end of the day, yes, we want something that looks sexy. Yes, we want something that has nice design, flight to quality, all of that sort of thing, great location. But when it comes to design of facades, interiors, this is the thing. The majority of our clients, they're not architects, they're not interior stylists.
We don't know shit about that.
And neither am I. I leave that to the experts. I leave that to the designers. So the design and the facade and the interior sort of styling and all of that sort of thing doesn't really matter, right? At the end of the day, we just want to know we've got square meterage, it's going to be rented, it's going to have capital growth. And I actually think the designers will do a much better job than us, right? So a lot of people get caught up. And I've actually lost clients because of this, because I just told them, I'm not allowing you to design it.
So they wanted to pick the kitchen the granite bench top.
I don't want to sound sexist here, but it's always the female who turns into some sort of designer / architect / interior designer who wants to pick colours and facade designs and all of that sort of thing. And it's got nothing to do with investment. I mean, if you're going to live there, it's a different story. But most of these people just want to get it rented out. And I'm not saying pick a shit design. I'm just saying leave it to the experts. And if you really don't like the property, don't buy it, right? Don't get emotional with it. We need to look at the numbers. We need to look at the tax benefits. We need to look at the yields. We need to look at the location. Focus on the bigger picture.
At the end of the day, they are designers, that's their field, they know what they're doing. Firstly. Second, if you adjust, say, what you want in there, it's probably going to cost you more. And if they're investors, they'll probably complain about that. So don't change what is being given to you.
Exactly.
And another thing is your personal preference, whatever it might be, the layout, the facade, that's your personal preference. And your preference isn't like everyone else's. And if you're thinking longer term, and say in 5, 6 years, 10 years time, you may want to sell it or refinance it. If you've got some weird quirky shit on the property, whatever it may be, that's not really appealing to the masses, it could affect your valuation and all that kind of stuff. So
you don't want it too custom.
Customize your own home PPR.
Exactly. Waste money on that.
Go wild there.
Yeah, waste money on that. Lose money on that, but not on my watch, right? Another one I get, where people get quite emotional, is when you recommend an apartment because it actually suits their current situation, their strategy, what they can and can't do. Because as we all know, apartments deliver different, like a different purpose than a house. And then when you recommend it, a lot of people go, I don't like apartments. It's like
it takes a hit on their ego, I think.
Yeah,
It's an
and it's
ego
like,
hit.
yeah, exactly, because they want the
They want a
land,
house.
they want a house, right? They want to tell their friends about it. I'm like, I actually don't give a fuck what you like or don't like, right? Like, it is right for your situation. It's the only solution for where you are at now in your financial position, right? And it's very frustrating that when people go, I don't like something, when we're not here to provide you something that you like. We're here to provide something for you that's going to perform and do a job and deliver you a result that you actually need for your financial situation. It shits me when people say, I don't like a certain thing. It's like, we don't give a fuck what you like, right? It's all about making money, creating wealth.
Yeah.
You know, your emotions are irrelevant, right? To the performance of the asset that's been recommended to you.
I think listen to the experts, whether it's design, the property, whatever it is, listen to them. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Just stay out of it.
Yeah. Stop saying you like and don't like something.
Unless you want to get knocked out, leave it alone. Leave it alone.
Look, we're not going to touch you up, but the next person that tells me that they don't like apartments, you are going to get slapped. What's number 7, Sam?
Number 7. Okay, complaint now. Low positive cash flow.
This is a big one at the moment because interest rates are going up, Sam. So it is a valid complaint. I know we've just poked a bit of fun at the emotional ones, but this is a bit of a valid complaint because you don't want to be upside down cash flow wise.
Yep.
And right now it's probably more of an incentive to go principal and interest, where you have to, essentially your repayments are going to double, right? But I think you're going to get a better interest rate with principal and interest as well. So it's case by case, right? You know, some people are very weary because they feel like interest rates are going to go to 10, 15%, which I don't think that's going to occur. But we have to take into account if we're buying a property that's yielding 4 to 5%, and you know we're getting an interest rate of say 6%, we're obviously negative cash flow, or you know it could be a yield of 5% and an interest rate of 5%, but you're forced to go into principal and interest, and then you're negative cash flow again. So it's really important to I think assess how much buffer you have. You know, what can you actually withstand? Again, case by case, because some people have higher incomes and savings rates. It really does depend on your personal situation, but it's a common complaint at the moment because people are concerned about cash flow.
You know why I think it is though? I think people are too used to having such a low cost of borrowing. They're not used to, because think when you bought your first investment, what were interest rates? 7, 6%?
It was about 9%.
9%.
Yeah.
See, and you were still investing then.
Yeah.
Because you know the long-term approach to property. Again, it comes back to thinking longer term. So even though you might be squeezed a little now, if you're picking well and you're following the fundamentals, you get 5%. You still got a little bit of buffer in there with the rental. Remember, if you're buying brand new, you're getting some tax benefits, which helps that as well. So in this time with higher...
Which will add about 1 to 2% on average in terms of a tax refund.
Correct,
right?
correct. So that's helping you. So how you pick your properties is really going to help you weather interest rates going up a little. Another thing, in case you don't know, people with investment properties, I'm not sure if you've ever done one. I'm not sure, but have you heard of a tax variation?
What, an investment property? I've done it for a few.
No, tax variation.
I have never done one, but I know some employees that do it. Yeah, explain to our listeners.
So how it works, just say you have 2 properties and they're brand new, you're getting massive depreciation, and you're usually entitled to 10 or 15 grand refund from your tax return. What you can do is a tax variation through an accountant, and what they'll do is, especially in these times where cash flow is needed, instead of waiting till the end of the financial year to get your 15 grand refund, the accountant, with your help, can lodge something with the ATO to adjust how much tax is withheld from your employer. So instead of getting the 15 grand paid at the end of the year, it'll be coming back to you through your pay slip by a bit more net profit.
So it'd be
net
instead of 15 grand at the end of the year, it'd be $300 a week.
Correct.
Yeah.
Good maths.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it in my head.
I am the human calculator.
The calculator. So,
yes.
so that's it. So it's going to help you weather the cash flow situation.
Yeah, so that's a really good strategy for employees, I think, right? Who can't really control their fixed income.
If they can't increase their income and they just want to take advantage of that refund now and push it through, help them. It's about, you want to hold the property, hold on for dear life. In situations where you need the money, that can really help you, because you're just clawing back what is entitled to you.
Well, you got
early.
so you're getting it in advance, right? So
ATO lets you do it.
Yeah, so you're getting it in advance, and most of the time people get tax refunds and they just blow it anyway,
That's
right? Because
they go on a holiday to Bali.
it's such a large amount, right? But if you get it, an extra $300 a week in that refund in advance, then that can go towards your yield, and that will help your cash flow position.
Yep.
So I think that's a really valid complaint, the low positive cash flow, because it's apparent now because asset prices have inflated, rents have taken a bit of time to sort of catch up, and they will catch up, they're catching up now. So there's going to be a bit of short-term pain over the next 12 to 18 months, and I think you've written something here, Sam, 100% finance. So those guys have to be extremely careful because there's no deposit or equity in the deal that's dropping their repayments, right? So they're paying the repayment on the full 100% financed amount, which means the payments are quite high.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to be careful. If you're over leveraged right now, just be sure that you've bought the right asset.
It's all about balance. If you went in 100%, you got advantage. You took advantage of that,
Leverage.
deposit, the leverage, but there's also some consequences.
Exactly.
So just note that. You still be fine, I think. But
if you bought the right asset.
If you bought the right asset, yeah. So there's always, yin and a yang.
I think, buying an asset where the vacancy rates are below 1%, making sure that you're bought in a really good location, flight to quality build, all of that sort of thing, that sort of mitigates your risk.
Insulates you.
And even if you do have negative cash flow, look, you on the back end, you're going to see a positive result.
Correct.
Let's move on. Number 8, this is a big one at the moment, build variation.
What does that mean to listeners? What does that mean?
So let's say you go into a build contract and the contract for the build is $350,000. There's been a bit of delay. There's an increase in materials, and the builder comes back and hits up the client for another $30,000, which is a lot of money. But if the builder doesn't do that, he runs at a loss. And the way I see it is you want everybody to win out of a transaction. And again, usually this complaint comes from a lot of employees that don't run their own business and they don't understand cost of goods have gone up. They don't really have any empathy. And I'm generally speaking here. I'm not sort of saying all employees are like that. But the ones that are sort of...
They have less experience in that space.
Yeah, they're not so entrepreneurially minded. They tend to really complain about build increases. And look, it's not fun. It's not fun delivering the news. It's not fun when you get hit with it. But in saying that, let's go back to replacement costs. If you were to take that to any other builder, they would actually probably charge you even more than what they are increasing the cost to. It's across the board. And it just means that you've made more money. So that 30 grand that you have to put into the build means you've actually made it. You're just actually putting that money into the bank. You're not getting ripped off. It's not a personal thing. It's happening to everybody. So, very rarely, obviously the builders that we work with are quite reputable. They're not going to put a build increase in there to make an extra 30 grand out of you. They don't want to do it. It's happening everywhere. It's a valid complaint, right? But if you understand the economics of construction, the state of the industry, the state of the market, you'll be okay with it.
And think about in construction, how long does it take to build a house? 6 to 12 months, depending?
Depending, yeah, 6 to 12 months.
And in the environment we're in is unprecedented with inflation. It's only expected that this stuff can happen. So being, reasonable and understanding that things can go like that is, it's only going to do you good and let you sleep better at night, knowing something can happen instead of being shocked when it does.
I think it's because we'd never really...
Haven't had this issue.
Yeah, gone through it before. And like for us, it's easy to sort of explain it and digest because we're, in the industry. But this is what people need to realise, that it's reality. Yeah. It's not going to change. As much as you complain and whinge and whine and bitch and moan, it's not going to change. We have to roll with the punches and we have to accept it. And the best way to really absorb it is just to write the check and move on, because you should be thinking about the next deal and not harping on a small build increase, really.
And I think, like you said, it's factored into the end value, so you're not losing out.
It's like putting money in the bank, Sam. You know, you'll always be able to refinance that one day and get that back out. Like you're not at a loss.
That's it.
Number 9,
defects.
Defects. So we need to tell people that no property is actually perfect, and you're bound to get defects. I have not built a property and had one perfect
build.
Yeah, every time I send handovers through, handovers are the guys that we use for our defects inspections, and we send them through 2 or 3 times, right?
Yep.
There's never been a time where I've sent them through and they've come back with 0 items to rectify. Like it's just, you're never going to get it. Like, because humans are actually building these properties, so you have to understand, like things are going to fall apart, things aren't going to get done correctly. Like, don't kick up a stink when things aren't rectified in time, because there is a time period. Now, there is a valid time to complain is when things don't get rectified and you've actually
if
notified
it doesn't get
the builder.
done, then complain. But if
of course,
give them
right?
time.
But if there's a defect, like a crack in the stairs or whatever it is, don't stress out. Like, and even if, let's just say, the builder and the developer don't rectify the defect and you have to do it yourself, who cares? Pay $1,000. It's your asset. Be proud of it. You know what I mean? Like, if your kid's sick at home, do you just go, oh my God, you're sick, I'm just going to leave you? Or do you take them to hospital? Or you take them to the doctor? Like, it's your kid. It's your asset. So it's the same as a property. If you don't get the help externally because, let's say, you're entitled to it, shit happens, right? Sometimes they don't respond. But it's an asset that's making you potentially millions of dollars in the next 20, 30 years. Look after it.
It's all about your attitude instead of dwelling on it negatively. You know, do your best to get it done, and I guess there's ways to mitigate that happening with your...
Stop playing the blame game.
The defect report, choosing good developers and stuff. One of the townhouses I have...
was there a defect?
Had some gas issue with the hot water. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
They took probably 2 weeks or something like that. But they eventually fixed it. I wasn't on their case. I was like, they just got out. It got done eventually. Everything was done.
Yeah. Not the first time you've had gas issues.
Not with the Mediterranean diet. It's quite common.
But yeah, it was sorted, right? Like,
it was all sorted.
Yeah.
You know, and because I've been in different situations where things don't go to plan, when it came up, I didn't care.
Yeah, it's nothing.
I was like, oh, fuck that. I felt bad for the tenant.
Yeah.
I think I sent them something to say sorry.
Empathy.
Yeah, I was like, fuck, that sucks. But I didn't hassle no one.
You still charge them rent though, Sam, didn't you?
Rent. I sent them some chocolates or something there. But, you know, I knew that thing can happen.
Yeah.
They sorted it out when they could, and things are okay. So don't stress about it.
Keep moving forward.
Number
10.
Forward. This is a big one.
We had it the other day. So unrealistic expectations.
I think the last 2 years has really created a lot of people with unrealistic expectations. They want money right now. They think everything they touch is going to turn to gold, which is probably a bit concerning. And you know, be careful. But I think just through the success over the last couple of years, people have maybe an impatient mindset, and they're trying to fast track sort of growth, which, you know, could lead to some problems. Would
have been good if they got into the market 2 years ago, and that's that. And I guess they know that. And people need to now have realistic expectations on what the market's going to provide to them over the next 2 to 5 years. Like, I do feel that we have access to stock that's going to perform better than the majority of the market. But in saying that, is it going to give you 20, 30% returns like it's did in the last 2 years? It's quite unrealistic to think about that. You know, you have to understand that we've just gone through one of the biggest booms that our generation will ever see, and it's going to cool. But what I think where the opportunity is that you can buy something in the next 12 to 18 months at a pretty decent rate without too much competition. Take your time with it as well and not feel so rushed. And then when this next wave comes in terms of a boom, you'll be in the market, and that's where you make the money, when that upswing really comes. So don't try and think that you're going to make 100 grand in the next 12 months. You know, like, make that from your job or make that from your business. But just think of the next 12 to 18 months as a way to store your wealth, preserve your wealth, and be in the market when it lifts up again. So really the opportunity is in the next 12 to 18 months if you're thinking long term.
To jump in. No, agreed, man.
All right, thanks for that, Sam.
No worries, man.
That was actually quite positive.
Yes.
Seeing
For
as
a bunch of negativity.
Yeah, there was so many negative topics in there. So, look, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Next time you decide to complain and bitch and moan to us, listen to this podcast first. All right, until next time.
Don't call us, listen to this.
Yeah, listen to the podcast. So until next time, peace out.
See ya.